Let me see. Last year was the year I reinvented myself. But this year I reinvented again, but the last year was a big one. I would say, yeah, almost 2 years. Almost 2 years.
I think we haven't caught up much since we left Vietnam.
Since Heritage closed down.
Party, and then
What, the Guinness party?
no, there was a party. So it was Guinness party, and then there was the barbecue that you had in your.
Yeah, the barbecue I had over here was after I moved here, after Honey Badgers. So that was, I think, maybe September last year. It'll be a whole year. Yeah.
Wow, it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year.
A lot has happened in a year.
Yeah, but I think our most memorable conversations are when you were coaching me back then. That was the most memorable conversations.
Yeah, we coached for like a year.
1.5 years.
1.5 years.
Yeah, I was doing fitness, and then you were doing life coaching. There was quite a lot of turmoil back then. Yeah.
So what's changed since then?
What's changed? Well, just now you asked me how am I.
Yeah.
That was the first question you asked before the went live. Nowadays I find myself having a very difficult time answering this question. Because the reason why is because it's like I'm neither good nor bad, I just am. So sometimes I catch people off guard. It's like, Felix, how are you? So I said, I am.
I am what I am.
Yeah, because ultimately I don't think so. It's whether we feel good or we feel bad, right? That is just a passing state. You know, there's really nothing that is permanent in the state itself.
Right.
Right. So if they're asking me something along the lines of, so Felix, what are you working on? Okay, I have a lot of things to say. You know, say, or they go like, Felix, how's the past few days for you?
Right.
How are you? When people expect I'm good, ma. So it sounds like a rhetorical question. So it's nowadays I kind of don't answer rhetorical questions anymore.
Okay. How about this? What's going on?
What's going on?
Ah.
The past.
The past. Month?
Okay, good. So the past month been working on something, or rather, wow, it's linked together. Hold on, how far do I need to go? Okay,
that's the thing, right? I mean, like, there's been so much change.
Yeah.
Like, I know even for myself, like in the last year, it's been like multiple lifetimes. It's like you have to choose different chapters.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, where would you start? It's like trying to go through like Lord of the Rings, like the trilogy. Like if I were to count like the whole year,
yeah.
Like for people I haven't seen in a long time, it's like, so what's been happening?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like which part?
Yeah, which part? Which part?
The latest iteration. How about that?
So I heard about I have a certain view about multiple lifetimes now, because in the past I always there's only one way I saw lifetimes. You know, it's just like the whole reincarnation, birthday cycle. But now I start to see actually we in a single lifetime there can also be multiple lifetimes. Yeah, that's what you mentioned. So most of the time people exist in a state of lethargy. Yeah, no energy, no intensity. So it's kind of life just happens to them, right?
Right.
So when you ask them how are you, they'll be saying the exact same thing.
Right.
But if you live a life of intensity, it's constantly change all the time. So and change is also different from transformations, which is another thing altogether. So coming back to the question, what has been happening? I enrolled in this program with Authority Institute.
Authority.
Yeah, with James, Maybury, Andy. So it's called 100K 100 Days program. But I told them, I said I don't care about the 100K. Just tell me how do I get subscribers? I always want to gain subscribers.
Okay.
You know, so over the past 1 month, I've started this thing. Not just only Facebook Live. It's more like I started on this sadhana. You know what's that?
Explain.
Sadhana is a spiritual practice.
Okay.
but it's a self-imposed and self-designed startup.
Sure.
So I had this thing called 100 Days. I think you know Sui.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she
Hi,
posted.
Sui, if you're watching.
Yeah, if you're watching, I doubt she is. Like, she's busy minding her own business. So she posted something on her Facebook once called 100 Days Challenge.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be a really nice thing because it's 100 days to the end of the year, and most of the time people wait for the end of the year. So I say, hey, let's start something before the end of the year, right?
Right.
And I've always been having this thought in my mind that I want to go through an intense transformation journey where it is not mediated by an external party.
Sure.
So I thought this would be a nice time.
Okay.
So I did this 2 Facebook Live, and my sadhana involves every morning 6:30. I do meditation, followed by Facebook Live journaling,
Right.
where I basically no holds barred, no secrets. I tell all of my things in my journal.
Okay.
As I write, I tell, and I also answer certain things in the morning. Whenever people like yesterday, 2 days ago, I got a question. Felix, why are you so confrontational? Why are you so confrontational all the time? So I answered that question in the 5-minute section. And then every evening I do the same reflection, how the whole day has been. For meditation, followed by reflection, live, followed by answering a question. I've also been doing OMAD. OMAD is 1 meal a day.
Okay.
So it's especially tough on me because when I first started fitness, right, I was conditioned to believe that if we don't eat every few hours, we lose muscle.
Right.
So now I eat only 1 meal a day, and I'm getting hunger pangs. Even as I'm speaking to you right now, it's like,
Are you getting angry?
Oh, massive hungriness.
Well-being, Felix. We covered this.
I'm not interested in the smaller well-being.
So here's a question, right?
Yeah.
Which is, like, is it worth it? So, like, to punish, like, okay, maybe punish is the wrong word, but when you're taking on practices that result, for example, in effects such as hunger, like you get hangry, or like it disturbs like your well-being in that sense, which it sounds like, right? Like your commitment to this 1 meal a day, you're committed to that. But in that commitment, it has external effects that kind of potentially affect the rest of your life. How do you balance that?
Balance. That's interesting. You see, when people think about balance most of the time, they think in terms of compromise.
Sure.
You know, so it's like I can't get it fully because there's too far to the extreme. So let's not go too far to the extreme.
Right.
But actually, there is certain benefits that only the other extreme can give you.
Okay.
Okay. So people say, okay, let me just do halfway. But the problem is when you do it this way, like I said, it's not really balanced compromise. So it's about finding something else that will fit both extremes.
Right.
So in the case of this, I kind of need to change the word here. It doesn't really affect well-being because it's a difference between well-being and it's, how do I put it? It's not about matter of feeling good.
Okay.
You know, ultimately, the way I see it, that when we chase feeling good, there's really no end to it.
Okay.
It's like a never-ending cycle, you know. But when we think about who we are exactly,
Yeah.
Are we how we feel?
Good question.
We are not really how we feel.
Okay.
Okay, we are who we are, but we are not how we feel.
Right.
And who we are is not something that we accumulate.
Okay.
Just because I accumulate kind of a lot of memories and belief systems doesn't mean that that's me. So, ultimate well-being, in my perspective, is a matter of breaking free from this bondage.
So, what does the 1 meal a day give you? Like, why did you?
I want the hunger.
You want the hunger.
Yeah, I want the pain.
What does it give you?
It doesn't give me anything. It gives me hunger.
Well, like what? Like I'm genuinely curious. Yeah. Because
So
obviously,
let me explain it further.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to explain it the way. I think I need to start from the more main philosophy first before I go into that.
Okay.
Life, in my perspective, is not meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be experienced.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Right.
You know? So pain is a sensation,
Okay.
but suffering is a choice.
Sure. I agree. Yeah.
You know, so if let's say pain is not something which is, if let's say pain is truly something bad,
Right.
we wouldn't have BDSM going on.
One way of putting it. Sure.
Yeah. And in many ways, many people are invested in misery as well.
No, look, I 100% agree with you, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you on the pain and suffering part, right? Like a sensation is just a sensation,
Yeah.
but how we experience the sensation is up to us.
Yeah. So
Right.
you see, whenever it comes to things like pain and hunger,
Right?
a lot of people starts to let it cloud the way they see things. Right? A whole lot of us, we are doing that since our childhood. You know?
Sure.
So, because of the dislike to pain and dislike to hunger,
Okay.
we behave very compulsively.
Right?
And most of the time, we don't even know we are behaving compulsively.
It's true.
Until our intellect gets triggered, then we only look back and say, "Oh, what's going on?"
Or you hire a coach.
Or you hire a coach. Right? So when you talk to someone, and then somebody says, a coach asks a good question, and you go like, "Oh yeah,
yeah. Why?
yeah, why?"
Why did I do that?
Yeah, but this process does not necessarily need intervention to happen.
Right.
You know, and if we can acclimatize ourselves, it's not about matter of being desensitized to pain.
Sure.
It's actually more about amplification and sensification. But okay, you're more sensitized, you're more sensitive to pain,
Okay.
you're more sensitive to everything,
Sure.
but at the same time, you are increasingly more accepting.
Sure.
So when you reach that state, right, it's that you can be like a dog. You know, dog.
Explain.
Okay, so a dog
Yeah.
can put its nose
Right.
directly in front of shit
Yeah.
and not react.
Right.
But it can also smell shit from like a mile away.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
Very sensitive, but also very tolerant.
Right.
So it is through this process that we can see, that we can truly see, and we can truly appreciate all the different facets of life.
Yeah, like what I'm hearing is like if you use the dog like metaphor or analogy, right? The difference between say us and the dog when it comes to shit is that the dog might not have any judgment around it. It just is.
Yeah.
Right? It's just another smell. It's just another like, stimulus from the environment.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing.
Yeah.
I think where a lot of the pain or like the suffering comes from is actually from the judgment or the resistance to whatever is happening. Right? Like one of the things that I've learned and have been practicing is all circumstances are neutral. Everything is neutral. Okay, whether you lose your job, whether you lose your business, whether like whatever is happening to you is absolutely neutral. It just is. Like rain. We can choose to think like rain is bad or rain is good. We can choose how we want to put meaning onto whatever circumstances or situations are happening, and they will give us a different experience of life. Right? So in a way, it's kind of similar but different. So what I hear from you is if you want to transcend kind of that meaning at all in the experience. Is that what I'm hearing?
Means I don't even the very idea of meaning
Right.
comes from the way I see it comes from a need to have meaning.
Sure.
But when your intellect is in full control, you
Yeah.
understand that there is no need to have meaning.
Okay.
As an example, a teenager wants to learn how to play piano.
Right.
Okay. So at first, this teenager maybe hears pop music,
Okay.
and now he's very attached to learning how to play the pop music.
Sure.
Okay. You go and play the pop music, you go and work very hard to learn this.
Right.
And initially, because of his attachment to
Right.
learning how to play that pop music, so that he can have a whiff
Right.
of what it is like to be an artist.
Right.
Now he needs to work very hard to go and learn it. But if let's say the piano teacher says, no, I want to teach you how to play piano.
Okay.
I don't want to teach you how to play that music.
Sure.
I don't want to play piano. Now this person is suffering
Okay.
because all I want is for you to teach me give me the music notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, teach me exactly step by step.
Right.
But what he doesn't realize is that the music teacher is giving him something more.
Okay.
And for him, at that point in time, there's all kinds of judgment. It's like, okay, this Beethoven, this whatever, not really my cup of tea.
Right.
But if he can when he transcends this, he starts to appreciate other genres.
Sure.
Maybe he doesn't prefer this particular genre,
Yeah.
but he can still appreciate it, right?
Right. Sure.
So he has now transcend likes and dislikes, but he mastered it even further. He kept working on his piano.
Okay.
Decades and decades, right? Maybe even like 2 decades or so. Now he has complete mastery over this piano, this piece of musical instrument.
Okay.
Now he is an artist.
Okay.
Now he can truly appreciate the true pleasure
All right.
behind playing the piano.
Okay.
So he trades off the smaller pleasures for the bigger one.
Okay. So what you're saying is, what are you saying?
Okay, so sorry, I thought that was clear enough. At first, we need a meaning. I need a purpose, but I cannot create my own purpose. I must have a God-given purpose.
Okay. Well, if you use a teenage example, right? If that teenager hadn't been inspired by pop music in the first place, would he have started taking on piano at all?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, in a sense, to me, it makes no difference. Like, if somebody loves pop music, go at it. If all they want to focus on is pop music, who's to say, right? At the same time, I hear what you're saying about the attachment. So when we're attached to things having to be a certain way, we might miss the lessons that come from, letting go of the attachment. Is that what you're saying?
No. At first,
Right.
that exposure to pop music is necessary.
Sure.
I'm not saying that is unnecessary too. It's just that it comes to a certain stage, not a state,
Okay.
a stage,
Right.
where the smaller things no longer give you the pleasure.
Okay.
It's like now if Rumi gives you, Ma, look at this,
Right.
whatever it is that she's holding, it's absolutely entrancing her right now, right?
Yeah.
She's absolutely like, but she gives it to you, and you say, oh, that's sweet. And then when the moment Rumi gets stepped out of the room, you put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
You're not interested in that anymore
Right.
because you have gone past that stage.
Sure.
So in life, in all areas of life,
Yeah.
just right now we're using piano as a metaphor.
Right.
But let's talk about the next level of looking at things. Okay? What about your health? What about your family? What about your career? And then if you really look at it some more, even more, deeper than that, there's a certain profound meaning to life. It's just that initially we don't realize it,
Sure.
and then we got exposed to the idea that there could be meaning, and then we follow a certain tradition.
Okay.
And after we follow a certain, that tradition can be many things. Okay, so it could be religion, or it could be just charity, or it could be whatever it is that it will be. Okay, and then eventually you realize that actually you start to see the interconnectedness of all of these different purposes, and then eventually you reach that point where you can be, you can appreciate all purposes.
Yep.
Then it is no longer just about the smaller things. Or it's not really I use smaller as a way to describe it, but it's by no means smaller or big.
Right.
It's just
It just is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just is. So so coming back to why am I doing all of these things?
Yeah.
It's because I have come to this stage where I recognize my own personal limitations in terms of what I like and dislike.
Okay.
And it is I see that my likes and dislikes is preventing me from appreciating many things.
Okay.
So I want to transcend that, not by means of eliminating the likes and dislikes,
Right.
but to make it so that even though I don't like something,
Yeah.
I can still appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah, so that is the idea. And you'd be surprised. It's a very interesting experience to go and volunteer in a soup kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Because while you're hungry,
Mm.
So imagine this: last meal of the day, 7 p.m. Haven't eaten anything since 7 p.m.
Right.
Now you are 7 p.m. in front of mountains of food,
Right.
giving out food
Yeah.
to people who are. Look at this; they are very compulsive. Do you know that some of the beneficiaries are demanding?
I've done it.
You've done it, right?
Yeah.
So you know,
I
huh?
volunteered at Petit a few
Oh,
years
amazing.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love it. I really enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it to anyone who's looking at any kind of volunteer
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
because, like, as I was doing it, it was one very fulfilling and a really great practice in just looking at people with compassion and respect. Like knowing that this person with the plastic bag, like that might be completely mentally like challenged in a lot of ways, like some of them can't even look you in the eye. But like for a moment, you can treat them, you have the opportunity to give them the experience of being a human being, worthy of respect, worthy of care, worthy of love. Like even the simple act of offering a drink, if you want a hot or cold drink, like I love that about people. I love that they give them that option because I think people so often like we overlook or we take for granted that the ability to have a choice. Most of these people have lives where there's not a lot of choice.
Yeah.
Or they don't feel like there's a lot of choice. Because they're on the streets, they're at the mercy of whatever is happening, right? And there you are giving them a choice between a drink that is hot and a drink that is cold. Like there's something really precious about that, I feel. And it's just, I don't know, I felt like it was a wonderful experience to practice that in myself. Like, can I look at people, regardless of what I'm seeing, and see who they are, like really as people.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
While being hungry.
True, I have not challenged myself that far. I'm a bit of a monster, I know that when I don't eat. So for the good of all around me, I try and make sure that my needs are met at all times.
You see, it's very nice. I mean, look at I tell you, I just told you that I'm hungry.
Right.
But do I look hungry?
You seem fine. I would not manage it so well.
This is training. But I haven't yet reached that point where you are where you can see them with respect and whatnot. I haven't reached that point. But it's a nice work in progress. It is a nice work in progress.
I think like for me, working on myself, working with other people, a lot of it is like where are you at and how much can you handle. So we're philosophically very different. I would say similar, but kind of different in how it presents itself. In some ways, like I think you're you're a lot more extreme. You take things to a much more extreme than I do, where I'm more middle ground in a way. And for me,
I don't do half measures.
Yeah, I'm all about like where do we meet in the middle, And for me, it's like what level are you at in the challenge? So, for example, I'm not sure how I react. Like, I mean, I'm testy around the people I love when I don't eat. Okay, so let alone people that I don't even know, right? So if I had combined the challenges together, I probably wouldn't make it. I probably wouldn't hit either challenge very well, right?
Progressive.
But if I'm taking on like one challenge at a time,
Yeah.
kind of like Bruce Lee in a way, right? One challenge at a time, maximum, like or understanding kind of like the sort of limitation. Then I can still learn the lesson. I can still like reach the state that I want to be in.
Yeah, got it.
Right, intentionally.
Got it.
And have that experience.
you recall how my philosophy is when it comes to fitness.
That's the thing.
Yeah. So
You know?
so it's not that I changed the philosophy.
Okay.
It's just that I have discovered the limits of that philosophy. So just as context, though, my philosophy when it comes to fitness is also one step at a time.
Right.
You know, so it's like, remember back then is I like you said you want to add one more habit. I said no, cannot.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I really appreciated about you as a coach.
Yeah.
Which was like the incorporation of small things to create like big results, which is something I take away with me even till today. You know?
Yeah. So that is the approach. That is the approach for just starting. But I think I've been transformed in many ways since the last I met you.
Yeah.
So it's come to the point where there is no longer any it cannot be at that pace anymore.
Right.
If we continue at that pace, it's more of a transformation.
Well, it sounds similar to even what you used to say like about the gym, right? Like you can't like stay stagnant at a certain weight. Like after you've mastered a certain like ground level, and I think like it's fair, right?
Yeah.
Like if you master all the steps, if you can't master one step, how are you gonna go to like the extreme?
Yeah.
You know, it would be damaging to pick up like 100 kilos if you can't lift 2 or break your back.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you got to a stage where like the stuff that you were already doing was kind of so like straightforward that it was like, what is the next challenge that really pushes?
Yeah, and I might add, in fitness, in exercise, it is you are bound by the limitations of human body.
Right.
And the human body grows in increments.
Okay.
But when it comes to emotional, spiritual journey, it is by no means incremental. The way it works is exponential.
Right.
Incremental is a given. You know, there's a funny metaphor.
Okay.
The universe is like a mum.
Like a bum?
Mum.
Like a mom, okay.
Like a mum, you know. So at first she will give you some gentle whispers to get into the shower.
Sure.
It's time for a shower.
Yeah.
So if you ignore her, her gentle whisper is gonna be slightly louder.
Right.
Right? If you keep on ignoring her, playing with your things and drawers, she's gonna come even louder.
So you did Funny and You, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh no?
No.
Okay. It's like they call it like taps from the universe, and then like if you don't listen, you get matched up.
No,
it comes and like rolls you over.
Yeah, exactly. She's gonna come and drag you, freaking and screaming.
Right.
So, like as an example, like what happened with honey badgers, you know, even what happened with cavemen. It's just as you either listen willingly,
right,
or something is gonna happen to you.
I call it like either we choose intentional change and transformation.
Yeah.
So you're actually choosing like how you want to level up in a way.
Yeah.
Or if you like to imagine that life can always stay the same, then yeah, the Mack truck's gonna come because I agree with you. Like I think like our natural state is evolutionary, is geared towards change. Like if you're not changing, like everything in nature changes.
Yeah.
It's just life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like either you're doing it, like you're choosing your battles, you're choosing what you want to learn, you're choosing change when the whispers come, or change will happen, whether you like it or not. And then it's a lot harder because then you're probably in reaction as opposed to like responding to the natural calling of your soul.
Yeah. So over here is this 1 month phase, which is 100 days. This hopefully it's not going to end after 100 days.
Sure.
This is like me going to the mom before she even calls and asking what else can I do? Can I help out with the housework?
Right.
Can I help out? Can I get tomorrow's homework in advance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is by doing it this way, the boundlessness is more readily accessible.
Right.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So what have you been working on?
Oh boy. So much. It's just really like this year has been like this accelerated process of like constant change, which is sometimes frustrating, but also I think I'm getting more used to it. You know, it's one of those things where like, and I think you can relate to this, where when you've experienced a lot of change, and I think like as coaches or as people who are committed to personal development, change is kind of part of life. Or we're more acutely aware, like you say, right? Like the dog can smell it from like really far away, right? We're acutely aware of the changes. So it's not like, what's happening? It's more like, okay, this is happening. What am I supposed to learn here? What am I learning about myself in this? Like, how do I respond to it? What can I create out of this? And it's been interesting, frustrating, not gonna lie. Coming to points of like, oh, I'm getting used to this. This is really cool for all of maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then like, boom, it's another drop, right? And it's another thing that shifts. And then like, okay, I'm still finding my bearings, right? On something that might, under normal circumstances, take at least maybe a few weeks or something. And then suddenly it's like, boom, and it's another drop. And I think I'm probably not the only one that's felt this way over the last few months, right? You go from like 2 weeks and then 3 months and then like, oh, suddenly we're cruising, we're like, we're okay, and then suddenly, oh my gosh, there's a spike, right? And there's all of these changes, and I think that, like, at least for me, I'm really grateful that I've been a coach for as long as I have, because it's cultivated that practice of like being with the unknown, being with things that we have no idea, like what's happening, being with like trying to like finding the good in every situation. So like, as you know, like obviously there's been a lot of change with like ending of companies, associations, and all this stuff. And honestly, it's been tremendously liberating. Like there's grief. There's always grief and sometimes resistance to letting go of things that we start getting attached to, or like the dream, the idea, and it can be very like shattering.
Yeah.
In that sense, right? Like that pain of like, it's like a baby.
Yeah.
I think if you have a business or you're, for me, like I was a little bit removed because it wasn't fully mine. It was more of JP's. It was more my husband's, right? But it was still a big part of our lives because obviously we're close, and I was involved in from time to time, and I knew how much it meant to him and the dream of it and all of these things, and kind of knowing that that's not going to happen. It's like you have to let it go, and there's pain in that, right? Letting go of the attachment. But after that, it's like, oh my gosh, I can do anything.
Yeah.
I can be anything. I can.
Just now you asked me, what does this process give me? It's one of the things it gives me.
It's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world, right? Like, I think it can be scary, but for us, and when we allow ourselves to just kind of like go of like the preconceived notions of how we had to be, like to fit into that mold or like that trajectory that we had set, and just go like, okay, let's take off all the boundaries. Let's take off all of the preconceived notions, and let's recreate ourselves and see, where do we want to go now in this moment, knowing that, like all of the experiences and everything have made us very different people from when we started that journey.
Yeah.
Right? Like we called it, there's a gaming term that JP brought up, which was like new player 2.0 or something, new player 1 or something like that, where basically like you're starting from ground zero, but with all the experience that you had, like that you've accumulated in past games, right? So that has been actually really exciting, really fun. Also kind of discovering a somewhat a spiritual journey in a way, right? I think. How do I describe it?
His spirituality is one small part of spirituality. It's about seeing things the way it is rather than how you would like it to be.
And also like developing that sense of trust. Like I do think that, for a long time in my coaching, I've been very much around like we are directing our lives. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you choose your life. And I still believe that to a large extent. But I think like expanding that a little bit more, also knowing that you are part of kind of a bigger something bigger, as it were. Whatever it is, whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe, whether you call it like whatever you want to call it, like I love the terms like, if it's God's will or like, inshallah, that kind of thing, because it's true.
Yeah.
There's only so much we control in life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could be totally sober and didn't have a drink that night at all and be driving along the road, and then somebody who was not even close to as responsible comes and just like, that's it. You can do your best to keep your health in like tip-top condition, go for a marathon run, and then like just drop of a heart attack. You know what I mean? So how do you balance like situations that seem super random? So some people respond to it with going like YOLO.
YOLO.
YOLO, I have no control anyway, so I'm just gonna like, drink myself silly, party there's no tomorrow, create a COVID party, whatevs, right? If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And then some people respond to that in just so many different ways. I'm choosing to respond to that in the sense of like a gratefulness. Like, oh, cool, nothing's happened to me. Like it is by grace that really bad things haven't happened to me. And there's a blessing to that because I know that it could. But it isn't. So I can be grateful for like every moment that, becomes more and more precious, like the health of my daughter, knowing that there are kids in hospital, the relationship that I have with my husband, knowing that not every relationship is like this, that like I am safe and I'm warm, knowing that that's not a given. For example, I'm not entitled to these things. It is a gift that I have them, and how do I make the most of that? How do I make the most of like the life that I have, the opportunities that I have, the relationships that I have, the gifts that have been given to me? And so it's not so much like, yes, in a way it is for me, in a way it is like my desire to create my own experience in life. But I think there's another element, which is, how do I make the most of this life that I'm given that is in a way fulfillment of my life purpose, my soul's purpose, my soul's desire, which I feel is different from just pleasure. I think it gives you pleasure. You know what I mean? Like for me, it gives me a lot of pleasure. It gives me a lot of happiness. It gives me a lot of joy to be in a state of like appreciation for everything that is in my life and my ability to fulfill like my soul's function. My ability to support people, my ability to have a conversation like this, my ability to say build a business, like that gives me joy. Knowing that I'm in full alignment with like what I'm here for. Right?
Yeah.
So that's come on the back of a lot of tearing down, right? And I think it's having like taking the opportunity to kind of put things back the way that you want them to, or in a way that fits. Because if something's breaking down, chances are it didn't fit. There were pieces that weren't in the right place, that was causing the machine to just like not work the way that it was supposed to. So when we take it apart and we reassemble again, it's an opportunity to see like, okay, what didn't fit, what shouldn't belong there, what does need to go in place, and using kind of that experience of, for me, like that experience of joy, that experience of like yesness, I call it in a way, like when everything feels like this is right. There's no resistance, there's no like hesitation, there's no doubt, because it's in like full alignment with values, purpose, all of these things.
Well, I heard a quote that will probably perfectly encapsulate what you just said. This came from Sadhguru.
Okay.
The stronger your desires, the stronger your personality.
Mm-hmm.
The stronger your personality, the weaker the presence. So the idea of having a strong presence is a dissolution of the identity. So,
Okay.
so we talk about because it's like we are very attached to a fixed way of thinking.
Right.
This is my plan for life.
Yeah.
In other words, this is my plan for God.
Right.
God has to give me my plan.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's actually what God's plan for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, like, I actually do believe that when we are following God's plan, there's ease.
Yeah.
Like, God doesn't want things to be hard for us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, challenge happens regardless. I feel like challenge is an inevitability in life. If you're choosing to up level, right, there will be challenge there. You know, if I choose that, okay, I want to make $1 million, right? There's going to be a lot of challenges that come in our way, and it's how we are reacting or responding to that challenge. Like, do we embrace it as like, cool, I'm facing all these challenges, I'm going to grow so much in this process, it's going to be real fun, right? Or, oh my gosh, I suck,
Oh,
this is so hard.
more challenges.
I don't
frustrating.
think I can do this. Why is it so hard?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
As you probably are very familiar with. Come a long way, baby. You know, but when we're looking at it in terms of like, okay, this challenge is for me. The challenges are for me. Like, God doesn't want me to have a miserable experience. The circumstance is neutral. It is there for me, for my growth. You know, that, like, I love the term, I know it's a bit cliche, but, you know, the idea that everything is ultimately working in our favor. And I have seen that, like, it's been so affirming in the last few months when, you know, I felt like, oh my God, we're going to die. Like, what are we going to do? What if we become homeless? What if we have no money? You know, and there were a lot of fears that were being put on us, like, kind of at a certain point of time. Like, if you don't, like, do this, you know, you're going to be screwed. Because, like, the economy is going to crash and, like, all of these things. And probably many people, like, out there are hearing these things right now. Like, oh, the economy is going to crash. We're all going to die. Like, you know, people are losing...
Reminded of that every session with James.
People are losing their jobs, you know, like, businesses are crashing.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's not the experience that many people are having.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, I've had that experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the choice that comes from that, you know, like that it ended, gave us so many more opportunities than we had while it was happening. We have so much more possibility that's open to us. There's so much more, like it was such a blessing. You know, and I saw this on a comment of one of my Facebook friends, right? And it was that prayer allows us, I'm paraphrasing, like, prayer allows us to look at, you know, he's an astrologer, so astrological effects, right? Can be really hard, so-called. But his comment was basically that when we pray, we can look at the circumstances of life as a mercy rather than like a suffering, you know, and I love that so much because the circumstances can be the same, but how we choose to respond to that, whether we see it as a blessing or as a curse, right? That's on us. That's on how we choose to experience life, or how we choose to see like what's happening around us and what we choose to make of it. You know, is it shit or is it fertilizer, right? Like,
shit is very good.
Right. So people are like, oh, it's so stinky. Why is it here? Ew, take it away. Right? I don't want it. Or people are like, I can grow some like really good vegetables with this. You know, like, and then I can have food, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Look at all the things I can grow, right? So, yeah, I mean, knowing even that it can be hard, and you can't skip the process. I feel, and you can't skip the process of grief.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like
totally.
the process of grief, like as much as I'm saying, like, you know, on the other side of the rainbow, like it's fantastic and wonderful and unicorns, like that process of grief is necessary, to say goodbye in a way, like to acknowledge the lessons too. You know, if we don't grieve, if we don't like allow ourselves that space to say like, this really mattered to me, I really loved it, I really cared for it, and now it's time to say goodbye, then most people don't start off with a clean slate of possibility. It's just an attempt to try and bring it back because the attachment is still there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, this is why I'm doing all this. Grief is a form of pain.
Right.
Yeah. When you transcend pain, then you can appreciate all of those things. Then it's much more easier to experience life.
Maybe just going through, like, look, I'm a big advocate of like, the only way forward is through, in a way.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't skip the experience. Like, you can't just numb ourselves and be like, oh, it didn't matter, like, I'm fine, like, yay. And
fastest way to get into depression.
yeah, you know, and I think like it can be very misleading when we're skipping that step, like going straight into the sunshine and rainbows, without like truly acknowledging like the process that happens in between, where in that shift, it can be painful, it can hurt, you know, there can be a lot of tears, there can be a lot of like, why God, why are you doing this to me? I mean, even Jesus had his moment, you know, right? Like, why have you forsaken me in that sense, you know? And so I think it's important for people to understand that even if we are having the experience of pain, that is a normal human sensation. You know, like even in the desire to transcend, I don't think that like you still can't skip steps. You know what I mean? Like it's shorter. Maybe you shorten the process.
You're aware of David Hopkins' work?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 17 levels, right? Levels of consciousness. He calls it. He says that there are 3 ways that people deal with emotions: suppression, escapism, and projection.
Right.
So he said that the only way to handle, the true way to handle it is to let it out.
Yeah.
Let it go. I recently started to call it letting it through.
Right.
You know, because the emotion doesn't really want anything from you; it just wants to get through.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like okay. I think you know, like people are too scared of their feelings in a way.
But at the same time, a lot of people confuse letting go with projection, because it's like, I'm gonna take out my anger.
That's true.
I'm gonna wallow in self-pity. You know?
That's true.
But it's just simply a matter of actually allowing yourself to feel it. That's all.
Right. And it's something like having a kid is a great practice in that.
Okay.
You know, and I'm glad that I have practiced myself. Like,
I had some small practice with my cat. She's not here, but hopefully one day I'll share it to you.
You know, like even before that, which is like I have a rule, right? Which is your feelings are totally fine. Yeah. All feelings are fine. Anger, sadness, whatever, as long as you don't hurt yourself or others. There's nothing that makes it acceptable to hurt somebody else, right?
It doesn't solve anything anyway.
Right, whether verbally or emotionally or physically, like on any level, right? Like, so if I'm angry, if I say cuss JP out because I'm angry, right? My anger wasn't the problem. My behavior was the problem because he didn't deserve that. He did nothing. Like, he's not responsible for it at all. I am responsible for my own behavior. So I can say, I'm angry, that's why I behave that way. Sure, but I need to take ownership and I need to apologize for my behavior because it was unacceptable. Right? So I need to make things right. Okay, so even as I'm teaching my child, for example, right now, you know, we have it in our house that emotions are totally fine. So if she wants to be angry and scream on the top of her lungs like somebody is murdering her, that's totally fine. Go to your room, use a pillow ideally because it hurts our ears, you know, but find a safe space to let out the feelings. And it's remarkable watching a child go through it because they do it so fast. They do it so fast. Like, she goes out in, you know, whatever tantrum or whatever, like, pain she's feeling or sadness or whatever, she screams on top of her lungs, and then she buries her head in her bed, and she's like, ah, and everything. And then she comes out, she's like, I feel better. She's like, I feel better. Yeah, I'm okay now. It's all good. la la la, and then we go on with our lives. There is no attachment to the feeling. There's no attachment to what happened. Like, there's nothing. It's like it's gone. It's like a cloud on a rainy day. And it's a wonderful experience and demonstration, I feel, of what happens when we allow ourselves a safe space. It's very important, a safe space to express our feelings, feel our feelings, process our feelings, in a way that isn't harmful to other people. So if she cannot control herself, for example, right? She's a child. So maybe she's she's on the verge of hitting people. My job as a parent, for example, is to take her away from where she can hurt people and put her in a place where she cannot hurt people, like her room, and give her some time until she calms down. And I feel like for adults, I wish people taught that, because it's something that I had to learn, right? Which is, if we're in a space where we might hurt somebody, one, getting the awareness that, okay, I'm losing control of my emotions.
Yeah.
I'm losing control. I'm getting really angry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna really do something or say something that could be really hurtful right now. I'm gonna take a minute. Because what do we know? All feelings pass. All feelings pass. So if it means going into the car and bashing the steering wheel for a bit, or going to the room and doing what I teach my child to do, and screaming into a pillow because there's so much rage, that's okay.
I'm teaching this, by the way. I'm gonna start teaching this soon. This whole process of letting go. I created my own process based on that.
Nice. I should do that too.
And you can have access to it, no problem. It's gonna be free lah. So the reason why is because every day when we do journaling, since all thoughts come from emotions, it's important to ground ourselves before we actually start the journaling process.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do thoughts come from emotions, or do emotions come from thoughts?
Thoughts come from emotions, for sure.
I have it different. And I'll tell you why. Because working with clients, for example, right?
Yeah.
I have literally seen how shifting a thought can shift an emotion in a minute.
Actually, what happened over there is the shift of the worldview.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, right, it's call it worldview, call it thought. In a way, it's a slightly mental process.
I'm referring to the other thought. I'm referring to the thought that branches out from the state. So, as an example, if my worldview of a relationship is that, if I'm together with you, you shouldn't be seeing other men.
Sure.
Okay. So if that's the worldview, then my belief system is anybody who sees if my girlfriend sees other men while she's in an exclusive relationship with me, she's cheating on me. So that's my belief system. So the state that arises if I see an instance like that is jealousy.
Right.
So in my state of jealousy, I would people who are unguided, in an unguided spiral downwards, they will start to think, is that really true? Yeah, but what if it is? What if let's say it is? What should I be doing? You start to have all kinds of thoughts. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what actually happened was that you inserted a new thought.
Yeah.
So you inserted a new thought that causes the worldview to change.
Yeah.
And because of the worldview change, then temporarily it gives a pause, so that the mind is not compulsive, the intellect takes over.
Yes and no. I mean, like just yesterday I had a session, right? And there was we're talking about a circumstance that kind of was leading to a lot of struggle, right?
What?
I can't know the specifics.
Okay.
All sessions are confidential. But let's just call it a situation where there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of anger, frustration, you don't like this, right? And it stemmed from how the client was relating to people and relating to herself, right? There was a thought of, people won't accept me for who I am. Okay, that's it. Right?
Belief system.
Right. Okay, so there's a context. We call it context, right?
Context, yeah.
Okay, so there's a context which is essentially a belief system or an idea of how the world looks. Okay, and so what the client was doing was choosing a context of, like people won't accept me as who I am, which I think a lot of people have. And then as we were chatting, right, and I asked, like, is that your relationship? Like, do you have any positive relationships, or do you experience support in your life? She's like, yeah, actually quite a lot. Like, I've got quite a lot of good relationships.
Now she expand her awareness a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we can see that there is actually
Change states.
another possibility. And as she's thinking about the loving relationships in her life, suddenly the whole mood shifts.
Yeah.
Her being changes, her, like her emotions. You can see it. You can see it in the process of, like, their face and their being. Everything starts to shift, right? In just shifting, like, the focus and the thought from, like, oh, that time when somebody else said I was, like, not good and, like, blah blah blah, to, like, hey, there are people who appreciate me, love me, care about me, and, like, her survival mechanism, as we know, so, like, the parts of ourselves that keep us rooted into a old or automatic state of fear, start kicking in again, and then you immediately see the shift. So it's really fascinating. Like, I used to think that feelings kind of, would trigger thoughts, but as we've practiced, like, in the practice of coaching, I've really seen how, like, just shifting the thought, shifting the focus,
I think,
like, can shift the state.
I think it's just our semester of thoughts different.
Maybe.
Yeah, because what I refer to as thought it sounds very different from what you refer to as thought.
Okay.
It is like you have inserted a new line of coding.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even, like, expanded the coding, so you now have 2 programs you can choose.
Yeah.
Knowing both are programs. Here's the thing, right? Like, I'm very aware that every thought, every context is a program.
Yeah.
And, like, one program could work wonderfully in this context. Like, if I want accounting software, right? I want freaking the most, like, logical, rational program that's clean, efficient, awesome.
Yeah.
But if I want my accounting software to run my design software, it's probably not going to work. Right? If I want to create a picture, I mean, it's probably not the best program for that.
Yeah. If you want to play a game, it's not the best program.
It's just not.
Yeah.
Okay? There's nothing wrong with the program itself. It's just the wrong place for this program.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Got it.
So when we develop a facility to kind of switch programs and switch apps, right? In the knowledge that none of them are necessarily wrong or right.
Yeah.
It's just where they are placed. What kind of context or system or for what purpose? And are we doing it intentionally?
Yeah.
Are we letting the programs run, like, automatically and taking up a lot of cache and a lot of RAM and really hard to, like, switch programs, for example?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or are we just going, like, okay?
Hold on a minute. Test. Oh, we haven't been turning on the mic. So we've been using my computer mic all the time. But it's okay. because the bar is high, so it means that people have been listening to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because you can see the green thing, right?
Yeah.
You see that? So before I turn this on, I guess both of us, we are loud enough that the computer can pick it up. Oh no, they've been watching, so.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
No mind, nothing is for wasted. We've been catching up. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. So yeah. Later I will show you something after we end live. I want to show you something that I've been working on. It's my own map of consciousness.
Oh.
But it's 3-dimensional.
Fascinating.
Like the map of consciousness David Hopkins created.
Okay.
So that's 2-dimensional.
Okay.
I added another dimension to it.
Right.
So yeah, it's something to see later. Anyway, cool. We've been talking for over an hour. So we're gonna end the live now. Thank you so much for coming here.
Sure.
Your coffee's on me.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
I bought it.
You bought it?
Another time, we need to have to meet up again.
Yeah, sure. We'll meet up again. Yeah.
Okay.
Fascinating. So, is there anything that you want to direct them to? Or something?
Yeah, sure. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Nadine Valdez Coach or on Facebook at Nadine Valdez Coaching. I have a website, NadineValdezCoaching.com. And you can always like add me, PM me, or whatever if you're interested in coaching, finding out how it can support you. I am specifically a women's empowerment coach, so I primarily coach women. I'd love to hear from you if you got any value from today's session or you learned anything. Hi. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
Cool. I will add this software that we're using, Restream. I can't actually type anything in there.
Okay.
But it will go to YouTube instead of Facebook. So
Sure.
later on, just send it to me. I'll put in a link.
And thank you so much, Felix, for organizing this. It's always fun chatting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna come for a networking photo shoot, right?
Don't know yet.
Don't know yet. Okay. So don't miss my Facebook Live. Start your day right every day 6:45 a.m. and 6:45 p.m. And I'll see you guys tonight later on for the daily reflection. Right? Bye.
Bye.
Finish.